So when we begin to look at this, here's what I discovered. I discovered that in order for us to really do the things that we need to do, it's all about connecting. It's all about building a sense of connecting and having teachers and educators reconnect to what it is that they do. To be inspired, to be able to make a difference in the life of children. To come to work every day with a higher sense of purpose, understanding that you are here for a significant reason. That there are no mistakes here, that you are here not just to inspire children, but you're here to leave a legacy. To understand that you have the power to do anything and to go anywhere you want. And if we teach our children that aspect of positive thinking and positive consciousness, what can they become? What can they achieve? Nothing is impossible. See, for me, when I went into my classroom, as you saw in the video, I was a broken kid. I remember back in the 70s what we had these split classrooms, and I remember that because I was in special ed was for the kids who were in room 315. 315 was the room that nobody wanted to go to because in that room, there were kids who were disconnected. There were kids who were special, and they called us the carpet kids. They called us the kid who rode the short bus, and they made fun of us. And I remember sitting in my home room, and over the loudspeaker comes our principal, and he simply says, all kids going to room 315, please go there now. Move expeditiously. And of course, all of our friends were sitting around, and we're laughing at each other because we're not one of those kids. I'm not one of those kids, though I knew that I was. And I did not want to be exposed. It's kind of like being a kid who can't read and being asked to read and the spotlight's on you and you get up and the kids can't read, so they disconnect. And I became very disconnected at that moment. But 10 minutes later, over the loudspeaker, the principal comes on and he says, all kids going to room 315, please go there now. And me and my friends were sitting around and we're laughing at each other because, of course, nobody in our class is going to room 315. And 15 minutes go by, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, nothing over the loudspeaker, and I'm safe because I will not be exposed. But about 40 minutes later, over the loudspeaker comes our principal again, and he simply says, Mark Anthony Garrett, please go to room 315. Mark Anthony Garrett, please go there now. And all of a sudden, all my friends who were my buddies and my pals, they looked at me as though I was something different, something strange. And our two teachers, they kind of looked at their ledger going down, and they're trying to figure out, well, we have no kids like this in our classroom. And then I saw one point like this. And they looked at me, and they asked me to get up. They called down the aide, and I walked out of the room devastated because I knew life was going to change because I was one of those kids who was different. So I got up, picked up my little Land of the Lost lunchbox, and you guys remember Land of the Lost, and I proceeded out to meet the aide, and we're down to room 315. And as I walked down the hall, it was funny because I felt as though something was wrong with me, like many of our kids who come into our schools who feel like something is wrong with them, who feel like they're inadequate, who feel a sense of disconnect, who feel that education isn't for them, who feel like they're not important. So I walk into room 15 and Miss Ritchie is talking to another teacher in the hallway and she says, go right in. So I go in and there's not a room of 30 or 40 kids, there's a room of 11. 11 strange kids, 11 kids who are different from everyone else. And I go in and there's a seat in the third row, so I go and I sit down. And it was devastating for me. I looked at Russell, and Russell was one of these kids. He didn't really say a lot because people made fun of Russell, and every time Russell would talk, he would stutter. And he couldn't get his words out. And they called him Stuttering Russell. And then there was Patrick, who had a prosthetic arm with the two little clips on the end, and I remember a week prior, he had gotten in a fight at recess, and these kids, they jumped and then they ripped his arm off and they threw it over the fence. And he walked around and he was running, and he was never the same after that. And then, of course, there was Jessica, and Jessica always came to school, and she never had clean clothes, and she was always unkept, and she had all these lesions all over her body, and she never talked to anybody. And she would sit and she would just play in the dirt all day, not speaking to anyone. But we didn't realize that Jessica was suffering severe things at home because all those lesions in her body, that's where her father would put out his cigarettes. And he would take objects and do things to her that shouldn't be done to little 8-year-old girls, but we didn't realize that. And there were a multitude of other kids who suffered things like that and things that even were probably worse. And so we were all in this room and we all looked at each other. Nobody said anything. We just kind of sat there all knowing that we were different, all knowing that we were strange, all knowing that we were made fun of by all the other kids. And we're all wondering to ourselves, how do we end up in room 315? And then here's the most amazing thing that happened. What happens is Miss Ritchie gets done with her presentation out in the hallway with the other person. They're talking. And she walks in and she is excited. She walks in and she says, "Hey guys, welcome to room 315. Welcome to our kingdom." And she says, if you are a male, you are a king. And if you are a female, you are a queen. And we will treat each other like royalty.